Since this year's Valentine's Day looks a little different than others, is it worth saving that money going out to a high-end restaurant and instead ordering the world's most famous steak, a proper Japanese A5 Wagyu? Well, to find out, that's exactly what we're going to cook up today and answer the question, should you spoil your sweetie with a cooked at-home A5 Wagyu? Let's get started. Hey, I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue, and let's just get this out of the way. $400. This is not an inexpensive steak, and I recognize that. But I see so many videos on YouTube encouraging you, people like me, to go out and buy it. And I want to know, is this steak really worthy of the hype and the praise that's reaped on it? Or is it a series of sponsored videos leading to e-commerce stores where you can go buy your own, and we don't need to be spending what amounts to an arm and a leg on a single steak? So I broke open the kids' piggy bank when they weren't looking, and we went out and got our very own steak for this experiment. And I'm nervous, excited, and a little unsure all at the same time if this is going to be worth it. Make sure I don't mess it up because this is a really expensive meat, and come back at the end to say, is this a really great way, to spoil yourself and your Valentine this year for Valentine's 2021? Or is there maybe a better meal alternative for even less money where you can get the same wow and effect? I had a friend explain it to me this way. If you're a bit of a car guy, I love cars, but it's like having a neighbor who has a kit car, Carol Shelby, built it in the garage and says, I have a real Shelby versus the real deal. Car collector, auctions, museums, these two don't belong in the same sentence. And I'm wondering if this will also hold true for steak, which is, as soon as we bite into it, it's the bite of a lifetime, and you say, all right, you've got to find a way to make this happen. Or if it's good, but is this 2-3 times better than Australian Wagyu to get the proper Japanese Wagyu? I don't know. Really hope it's worth it, because we got a lot invested in this one, but I can't wait to share it with you. We're all going to find out at the exact same time. So let me bring the camera a little closer and explain how we're going to set up for today's cook on the Big Joe. Okay, so today we're going to be cooking on the Big Joe, mostly because I want to use the soapstone accessory. I've gotten my absolute best sear using the soapstone. So I'll bring the camera right up close. What we're going to do is add a little bit more charcoal underneath the soapstone, fire it up, let that soak, and that's going to act as our heat diffuser and then later our sear surface. So let's fire it up. Okay, so as you can see, we've already got our basket cleaned out and empty, and I have the coals banked towards the back. Now it's just getting a little bit low here on the front, so I'm just going to go ahead and drop a few more pieces of big block in and fire it up. This will be more than enough for heat, but I really want some even heat coming up to hit our soapstone, so we get nice even heat building in our soapstone for that really awesome sear. Plus, new stuff is always easier to light than old charcoal, so this will just help us getting a good bit of coals really quickly. All right, let's fire it up. Okay, that looks good. Now, just as we're assembling everything, the reason I bank the coal to the back is often that's where our fire burns towards. Plus, when we're reaching in and we want to sear, it's just nice not having those flames at the front that are coming up and hitting your hands or your forearms, especially if you're not using high heat gloves. So just based on the natural burn direction, as well as keeping our hands safe from any flare-ups, that is why I chose the back. So let's start off by installing our divide and conquer rack. Okay, next I'm going to install a grid, which is going to help support our soapstone. I actually just realized I want the notches the other way, so I'll just adjust that. And so the reason I'm doing that is I want to be able to have the grid lining up with where the charcoal is, versus the way I originally had it, the grids would go that way. So I'm just going to drop this grid down in on the bottom. Okay, once that heats up, I'm just going to get a paper towel, a little bit of olive oil, and just wipe off any of that dust or dirt. I like to flip my stone between cooks. So this one was on the one, this side was on the bottom on the last cook, And so now this cook will be burning off whatever was left on the bottom, and I'll clean this off before we put any food on it. The last grill I'm going to put on the very top rack of our divide and conquer. And so this is going to serve as our indirect reverse sear portion. And so what we'll do is we'll put our A5 Wagyu right up here where it's got about 4 or 5 inches of separation from our soapstone, which is acting as dual purpose. It's going to be our heat shield for the reverse sear portion, but it's also going to be soaking up heat, so when we're ready to go to inferno mode and blast sear it, it's already soaked up some heat and it'll heat up that much quicker. Then we'll remove this and just be able to work on this grid directly. All right, oh, I'm nervous and excited. Just getting this out, I can already feel the fat in the steak starting to melt as if you picked up a piece of room temperature butter. I have never had a steak do that before. So a little part of my inner child just jumped with joy at the thought of how tender this might be. So for seasoning, I'm gonna keep it really simple. I'm gonna go with salt, but I'm using my favorite salt. This is usually what I use for finishing salt, but for something this special, I think I'll use that as the seasoning salt, so it's fleur de sel. And then just fresh cracked pepper. And to really keep a laser eye on everything, I'm going to use the meter probe and be watching that like a hawk, just to make sure that we don't go well beyond what we want for an internal doneness. So let's season this up, get our probe in, and we'll be ready to throw it on. Okay, we've seasoned all sides of our steak. Let's clean off our soapstone and get ready to throw this on the grid. Okay, our grill's up to about 270 degrees, which is what I want for the reverse sear. So I'm just gonna go ahead and quickly clean off our grid now that it's warm. And then I've got some paper towel with some olive oil. Just gonna dump a little bit of olive oil on our soapstone and just wipe that clean of any debris, ash, or leftover food from our previous cook. Okay, that looks good. Let's go ahead and throw our grid back in, as well as our steak. So I was debating where to put the meter probe, but I picked the thin end here, just so that if there's a chance of anything cooking quicker, the small end here will do that. And I'm gonna set the probe much lower than where we're gonna take this. I'm gonna set it for 120 degrees. And I always go about 10 degrees below where you want, just so that we can come out and then spot check other parts of our steak, just to make sure that we haven't, overcooked it or gone further than we want in any area. So we'll go ahead, connect our meter app. I'm gonna set it for 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And then once we hit 120 degrees, we're gonna come out and spot check with our thermopen in a couple different places to see where we are all over the steak. And then if we're still fine and we're even everywhere, I'm gonna take this closer to about 130 degrees before pulling it off, letting it rest, and then we're gonna go blast sear mode and crank up the heat on our Big Joe. Let's let this start cooking. All right, it's been just about 45 minutes at 270 degrees, and I haven't even gone inside, and it's the middle of winter. I've been pacing around like a nervous Nilly, just making sure everything's staying exactly where we left it from a temperature perspective, checking the meter app, probably way too many times because it sends a text alert when you're done, but nonetheless, I just wanted to make sure everything was tracking exactly as it should. But we are there. We're at 120 degrees Fahrenheit now. It sent me the alert. Let's go ahead and move a little closer, and we're going to check other parts of our steak just to make sure it's exactly the same, and then make our final game plan to go to about 130 degrees Fahrenheit, pull it off, let it rest. I want it to cool off a little bit while our heat is coming up for inferno mode. And the reason I want the heat to start to cool down is if we were to go immediately from our reverse sear to sear, that heat will just continue to cause the internal temperature to accelerate. Whereas if you cool down, say you go peak at 130, cool back down to 120, and then you sear it, you don't ever really cross that line that we hit out of 130 degrees internal Fahrenheit temperature. So let's get the camera a little closer. We'll check it out together, see exactly where we're at, and make final adjustments before we pull it off to rust. Oh, I'm so excited. Let's check this out. Oh, that looks good. Oh, it's just like butter. So this end is definitely not reading 120, 102, 103. I don't believe that. And somehow 149. That is interesting. We have pretty big spread in our temperatures. So I'm gonna go ahead and just flip this. Also gives me a chance to put that thin end towards the back. And checking our other side here, I'm just going to work my way from front to back and look at our internal doneness temperature. So just like the other side, we're getting a consistent reading just below 100 degrees. Middle of the steak is a little warmer. And the back half of our steak is the warmest. So I've now moved the back half of the steak towards the most protected area. I wonder if that thinner area being a little bit more exposed to the charcoal that we have here, as well as some of the heat, was helping that thin point end cook a little quicker. So to help offset that, I've put it towards the back now, which is the most protected. Like I can put my hand almost right on that grill and I'm getting next to no heat. Whereas if I come right here on the front, that's hot, that's kicking some heat. So now that we made that adjustment, this should continue to hold pretty close to where it is right now. And at the same time, we're gonna increase the amount of heat that is facing the thicker, wider portion of our New York strip here at the front. And it should all finish at about the same spot. So let's give that about another 10 minutes and we'll check on it again. All right, just 10 short minutes later and we are there. So time to pull this off, let it rest, and start building some heat in our Big Joe for Inferno mode. So soft. All right, let's let that rest, build some heat. All right, we're at about 600 degrees, which is about as max as we're gonna get with a half basket tucked underneath our soapstone. So let's go Inferno mode. I'll bring you nice and close so you don't miss any of this, and we can sear off this Wagyu A5 steak on our soapstone. Just like that, I think we're done. So let's let this rest another few minutes and slice it up. All right, let's slice in and see how we did here. So it looks like we've got perfect edge to edge medium rare, which is why I love the reverse sear method. Let's get this into slices and do our taste test. All right, the moment of truth. It's with nervous anticipation that I dig into this and see how we did. So here we go. Okay, so as I brought that to my mouth, I was thinking, it's not worth $400, not worth $400, $400, can't be worth it. The minute I took a bite, take my money just came to my mind. That is a good piece of steak. 400 bones good? I'm not so sure. I think we need to do a bit of a side-by-side taste test where we put Wagyu versus just a normal tomahawk, which is personally my favorite steak. But I can see why this is so well hyped on the internet. It is fantastic. Anyways, I hope you really enjoyed today's video. gave you an idea maybe for your Valentine's Day dinner where it looks a lot different than in years past. And if you like the video, please let YouTube know by hitting that thumbs up button, or let me know by hitting subscribe to catch future videos. Until next time, I'm James from Soca Dad Barbecue, signing off. Remember, don't be afraid to fire it up. Oh, I got another piece. Oh my word. Oh, the fat cap, so good.